And a quick reminder to everyone, anything I cover on the show is spoiler, 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 all the way up to the most current episode of Better Call Saul, which in this case is season 2, episode 8. Proceed at your own peril.
Saul and Battery, hosted by Ali.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery, brought to you by the good folks at Bog Panda. Be sure to like and subscribe. So today, sorry this one's late. Decided to do these a little bit sooner in the future, but wanted to do episode recaps of the final 6 episodes of Better Call Saul. And so we're going to start with season 6, episode 8, Point and Shoot. In addition, we'll be kind of jumping back to some of my predictions, see how well I did. I was a little surprised that kind of 2 out of my main 5 predictions were resolved here in this first episode. Not surprised the final disposition of Howard's body was resolved, but was surprised Lalo's storyline ended as quickly as it did. I figured there was going to be at least another episode or 2. But judging, trying to be a fair judge, I'd say I'm 1 for 2 on predictions so far. And we'll kind of touch on that as we do the real quick recap. So as we've done on a number of episodes, most notably the episode where Nacho passed, we get a flash forward, at least relative to the episode. It's a beautiful beach scene. Eventually, you see a men's dress shoe. Pretty much unquestionably a Howard Hamlin dress shoe as soon as you see it. Very fancy, very nice. And sure enough, as it peels back, we eventually see Howard's car, a single set of footprints leading to the beach, and his wallet and wedding ring sitting on the dash as it plays some innocuous music in the car. Now, there's been a lot of chatter on the interwebs around how did Mike pull this off? We'll do that later. We return back right where we left him last episode. Jim, Kimmy, and Lalo are in the apartment, and Lalo is giving both of them some very explicit directions on what needs to happen next, which ties very closely to the title of the show, Point and Shoot. Jim used to drive, take care of a house cat that looks like a librarian, which is a very interesting way to describe Gus Fring. Shoot him and take a picture and bring it back to Lalo, accomplish it all in an hour, and Kim's going to stay back, and bad things will happen if he's not back. Jimmy almost immediately starts to say it shouldn't be him, it should be Kim. And my reaction was much like Kim's reaction at the very start of this, is that what is he doing? Is he really that low that he's going to dump this on Kim? But then she came to the realization, about the same time I came to the realization, that no, he's actually being noble here, and he knows who's ever staying with Lalo is likely in the worst position possible. And so he's trying to get Kim out of the apartment, away from Lalo. Whether she does it, whether she just gets the police, whatever, he just wants her out, and he's putting her ahead of himself, which I didn't think so initially, but pretty quickly I got that. So Lalo very aggressively zip ties Jimmy to a chair, all the while explained to him what happened down in his home. And we got part of the "it wasn't me, it was Ignacio" line again. So this is one of many, many, many callbacks on this episode, which are cool and neat connections. But this one was almost a little too dense, because we're going to have multiple ones of these kind of coming up. And at some point, it stops being cool and feels a little more on the nose, at least to me. So Emmy nominated, well-deserved Emmy nominated, belated Emmy nominated Ray Seahorn as Kim, who's driving to Gus's house. And she just, with no dialogue, conveys just tons of story advancement through there. And you can see what's going through her head just by her expressions. And she's out of focus for a decent portion of the scene. And particularly when the cops pull up and they're kind of focused on the cops, but you can just read what's going through her mind about, should I talk to them? Should I not? Pulls the window down, but she stays on course. And then callback number 2, almost beat for beat, like when Walt went to Gus's house, pulls up to the same spot. It's basically the same time at night, gets out, walking the same path. I was really waiting for her phone to ring and something to happen, but she made it further than Walt, and was actually, to me, more menacing than Walt anyway. I think there's a better chance of her doing something than Walt. She gets to the door, pulls back, kind of like Jesse when he shot Gail, kind of very uncomfortable behind the gun, another callback. But then Mike grabs her, kind of pulls her in the house. I really think it was cool when Mike asked Kim why she was there, she said to shoot this guy, and it was Gus's body double. It's funny. So Lalo, whose plans all along was to pull everyone away from the laundromat, successfully does that, and then in his usual parkour Lalo fashion, makes his way into the laundromat. Gus's spidey sense is starting to go off, so he talks to Kim. Kim explains that Lalo was originally going to send Jimmy. Then Jimmy talked Lalo into sending her. That kind of triggers Gus to go, that doesn't make sense. And so this really must not have been his plan all along, and this must be a feint, and there must be something going on. And so Gus summons some of his remaining folks, and off they go. So Gus and his men arrive. Lalo takes out all of Gus's men almost immediately, and he begins to force Gus to give a tour, encouraging him by giving him a shot in his body armor first. They eventually get downstairs. Lalo's pretty much any last words, and Gus is like, you bet. And we're treated to round 2 of Dis the Salamancas, as well as Don Eladio. And so Gus kind of lets him have it with both barrels, kind of like Nacho did, but a little better outcome for Gus than Nacho in that, as we saw in the previous episode, where he'd stored the gun, he had looked at where he could kick the power out and all those things. He, Lalo says, big talk, he finished. Gus kicks out the lights, gets to his gun. Scene went dark, as you would expect, with the lights being kicked out, but it was really hard to pick it up. I had to actually rewatch it several times because I saw Gus pulling the trigger with no bullets coming out, but I didn't realize that's because he had totally emptied his magazine until I went back twice more, because they're firing almost simultaneously. There's no light except the gun flare from both muzzles, but that happens. Gus turns on some emergency lighting, and Lalo is indeed down and out. And we get one last laugh grin from Lalo before a flood of blood comes out of his mouth, and Lalo is no more. So while I'm not really complaining, but maybe complaining a little bit about all the callbacks, there's one callback I will not complain about. Lyle has returned, singing the Polos Hermanos jingle as he opens the store. What a fine employee Lyle is. And he'll be running the Polos for the next week or so as Gus recovers from his gunshot wound. So it's always awesome to see Lyle. Love that character. So Mike shows up at Kim's apartment. He's doing the cleaning thing, just like he did with Jane. He eventually will give instructions to Jim and Kimmy, just like he did there. He asks them to repeat, just like he did with Jesse. So again, more kind of callbacks from there. Still kind of cool. It's kind of how Mike operates. In this process of they've got to get Howard's body out, this was in my predictions a miss. In that while I did, it's no big stretch to assume they'd have to kind of fake a suicide. I had the car on fire, something was going to have to happen to try and hide the body, or hide the gunshot wound in the body. But an even better approach, of course, is to hide the body entirely, and they'll never find it. More on that in a bit. But my prediction on kind of what they were going to do with Howard's body was way off, because I did not have Mike playing the central role. Silly me. And that makes a ton of sense that was what would have happened. But Mike and his crew are coming in. He makes sure that they're wearing gloves for safety protocol reasons. And they're basically bringing in a new fridge, and they're going to haul Howard out in the old fridge. Quote of the show for me was Mike turning to Jimmy and Kim and going, "You're getting a new refrigerator. I'm assuming stainless will do," in the typical Mike way. Awesome line. Really fun. Not so fun for Howard, but still kind of fun. So it closes with Lalo being buried in the super lab, as I predicted. So I get the one, Lalo's going to be in the super lab somewhere. That was true. I did not have him with Howard. And so it states back to my Howard miss from a little bit earlier. It makes a ton of sense, though. And so as we're watching all the scenes in the super lab for Breaking Bad, our experience will be different, because we know somewhere underneath there are Lalo and Howard. So the remaining predictions that are left: what happens to Jimmy? What happens to Kimmy? What happens to Gene? I didn't do one, but it is going to be, I still think there's something a little more that has to happen to fully bond Mike to Gus. I don't know what that is. So excited to watch with you to see what happens there. There was a teaser for episode 9, which was a shot of Saul's office in black and white, and a voiceover from Jimmy, basically kind of saying, one of these days we're going to get up, brush our teeth, and we're going to realize we haven't really thought about it later in the day. He seems to be trying to talk himself into things are going to be okay, trying to talk her to things are going to be okay. I don't see her buying into it. Jimmy has history here of kind of eventually compartmentalizing and washing away what happened to Chuck. And I think he can do it again here with Howard, even though it's even a lot more severe. I don't think Kim has it in her to do it. And so I think that this may be that wedge that really starts to separate it, that Kim's going to say, hey, I can't be with you anymore because being with you will remind me of this, and I cannot get away from this, and I need to get away from this. But we'll see. So great start. No big surprise on that. Looking forward to seeing the next episode. And my next one of these will come out a little closer to shortly after the episode aired than this one did. Thanks for watching.